can see it. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much. Um, okay, so for this presentation, first I want to start thanking the conference organizers, also the São Paulo Research Foundation for providing me with the postdoc grant, also the University of Campinas in Brazil, and also I want to give like a big shout out to Dr. Daniela Albini Pinheiro, who is a department colleague, a very good friend, and also whose PhD dissertation on hackers and hacking in Latin America was the text that actually inspired me to look further into games that portray the themes of like hackers and hacking. So this presentation is part of a research still in its exploratory stages. Its goal is to analyze how games represent hacking and hackers and how representation reflects to specific stereotypes. So hackers and hacking, the hackers and hacking trope is commonly used in video games, usually to allow players to get the game's lore, core or additional lore, or for destroying enemies with ease. In this presentation, I intend to analyze how Assassin's Creed, Black Flag, and also Nier Automata builds their version of what hacking is and who the hackers are. So for this presentation, I'll quickly describe the games analyzed here, and as they are AAA titles, quite well known for most of the game scholars here. Just a warning, but it's always, I mean, I know it's not super required, but it's always good. This presentation will be very heavy spoiler based. So if you haven't played this game and if they should do it spoiler free, I recommend not watching it. Even though like Assassin's Creed Black Flag is quite old and like Nier Automata, it was very well played and received when it came out. So then I will present some of the literature I could explore on hackers and hacking, analyze and analyze those games in relation to that. I conclude my presentation by arguing that the games constructs the idea of the hacker as potentially being anyone, which doesn't align to the peer recognition hackers themselves seem to strive for. Besides that, both games use a similar strategy to presenting the hacking activity. So a loan process used to get into secrets that should not be known to society. This choice seems to barely be related to what the literature on hackers and hacking discusses. So let's start off with Assassin's Creed Black Flag, which is the sixth game of the Ubisoft Assassin's Creed games main series. It was released in 2013 for several gaming platforms. And this game focuses on the premises that anyone can access the ancestors' memories by using a machine called Animus, a technology controlled by a company called Abstergos, which is in turn controlled by Templars. In this iteration of the game, the company discovered that we can access anyone's ancestors' memories, but only by scanning the person's DNA. In this sense, Abstergo created a branch company called Abstergo Entertainment to use their Animus technology to develop what they call commercial title for people to explore edited parts of historical settings. The game's player play as themselves in this present day part of the game and explores the life of pirate Edward Kenway, an assassin living during the called Golden Age of Pirating, aka the 18th century, who is trying to stop the Templars to access the observatory, which is a place that will enable anyone to be spied on if the system is given just a blood sample. In other words, it is a system that would hinder people's freedom, and the assassins are the ones who cannot let the Templars get access to it. So back to the present day, the player explores and hacks into several Abstergo's computers to discover other assassins infiltrated the company and what they are hiding from Abstergo. So the player ended up being hired by the assassins themselves at the end of the game. So it is a very it's a kind of a convoluted story, but that's But that's I believe that's all the Assassin's Creed on on charm actually. So Nier Automata is a game that was released 2017, so so um, it's a much more newer game for several gaming platforms. So PC, Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and Nintendo Switch. This game is set during a war between the alien-created machines and human-created androids, focusing the actions on the combat unit called 2B. Also, the scanner android named 9S, which is the one that is being held here in this image, and the rogue prototype called A2. So the game requires the player to play the game multiple times to be able to unlock different layers and endings of the story, which is the one of a never-ending war, which both humans and aliens have long been extinct, but their machine and android creations still carry on with it. So hacking in this game is an exclusive action to the scanner unit 9S, and he uses this process to get access to machine systems, to destroy them, as well to uncover the machine's ideologies and feelings. Besides that, the Android also uses this ability to hack into the Android system, so the player can actually find out more about the game's main lore. So, um, so let's start to talk about a little bit on the literature review about hackers and hacking, so we can go back and talk a little bit more about the games. So literature about hackers and hacking is a fairly well established by now, and there is a good amount of discussions around these two terms. As this presentation is still in exploratory research, I will focus the literature review on discussions on who are the hacker and what hacking means. This is very important. It is very important to stress here that these definitions are still very much disputed ground within the literature and among hackers and hacking practitioners themselves. However, the literature on the theme tries to characterize them, and this will be discussed here as it is crucial for the analysis of how Assassin's Creed Black Flag and Nier Automata represent it. So, the literature on hackers and hacking traditionally divide them into three different historical stages. So the first one started in the 1950s when the MIT Stack Model Railroad Club it was a group of computer and model train enthusiasts started using the term hacker to identify themselves, as they considered the conventions followed by all of their engineers at MIT hindered the creative nature of inventions. The second generation, known as the hardware hackers, emerged from the 1960s counterculture movements and the social political engagements were present in actually their understanding that computers and other technologies, of course, especially digital technologies, should be popularized to be used as instruments of political struggles and personal liberation. The last generation, which began around the 1980s, which is known as the game hackers, are the people who had access to home computer and would create and share games and software based on the sharing culture and liberty of expression, based more on the sharing culture and liberty of expression than to actually make money from what they created. So the first studies on hackers and hacking tended to characterize them as a group of individuals who had shared practices and a common history. In general, early studies about hackers and hacking tend to characterize them either as number one, as young males obsessed with the internet, obsessed with trolling, and who searches for knowledge to improve their abilities. Or two, hackers as emancipation agents who fight against modernity and capitalistic restrictions. According to Pinheiro, Even though more recent studies seek to bring more complexity to this binary characterization and history, hacker and hacking prototypes continue to be present in studies due to the work of Eric Hammond, one of the pioneers in these hacker and hacking studies. So Eric Raymond's work characterizes hackers as a majority white, libertarian, apolitical, IT aficionado male who is interested in prove their values based upon what they can create or transform. Also, according to Pinheiro, there are three main questions we need to address based on this Raymond's characterization. The first one is that, sorry, a person will only be recognized as a hacker if their peers recognize the person's ability. The second is related to the hacker work organization. The codes being worked on should always be open and accessible by everyone. The last one um, is the discussion of the place of hackers' political instances. Raymond does not negate the existence of political interests in hacking, but according to him, these must be related to the most basic hacking norms. So freedom of speech and the legality of the open code. Um, Therefore, people who get access to private information is not considered to be a hacker, but rather a cracker. So up until now, I described both games to be allies and a little bit of how Nier Automata and Assassin's Creed Black Flag represented hacking. Besides, I'm just finishing talk about a little bit on this scholar literature about hackers and hacking. So now let's dive and analyze these games a little bit further. So in Nier Automata, 9S has to approach a machine he wants to hack, establish a connection, and destroy its core to get access to it. So he's never quite alone. So as you can see here in the top left image. From it, the player can choose either to destroy the machine to take control of it, which is always going to be destroyed after all in the end. So in the case of boss fights, hacking is also used to unlock the machine's secrets and backstories. Above all, to those machines that had access to human philosophy and decided to live um, based upon it. So in this, in the bottom right image, we have one of those cutscenes when you manage to hack Simone, which is based upon Simone de Beauvoir, the French philosopher that studies gender. And every time that we manage to hack her, she talks about gender constructions, beauty, and etc. So that's how they actually put the game story to move forward. 9S also uses this ability to hack into the Android computer system, which is the bottom left image, where he discovers that humans are long extinct and that Chibi is an android designed to destroy him every time he discovers this truth. Then again, rebooting the story the entire time until the player decides to end up with their own game and destroying everything. So the hacking gameplay is the following. So you're booted to a Bayesian white screen, which is the top right one, which is the very opposite color direction that goes in the main game, which is based upon like grayish tones. And arcade style music starts playing, which is also another disruption from the main game. Using your pointer to shoot and destroy barriers and the protection systems to destroy the machine's core. In computers, 9S is usually by himself, and he travels into the sepia-toned world, a world that seems and feels to be in between the computer's hardware and software. When we get to the Assassin's Creed Black Flag. Once you reach certain milestone within the animal simulation, you are booted back to the present day abstergo entertainment. Here, the player, playing now as themselves, are encouraged to explore the building and hacking into computers. Hacking always occurs in a place where the player finds him, her, or themselves alone, where the player uses a tablet to get access to a computer and a minigame is booted. These mini games vary in scope, but they're also arcade style. They play a game either of like Frogger, which is the top right one, a game to find the right tune to a given wave, which is the bottom right one, or even to navigate a labyrinth-like ball to put the cursor into the green line, which is the top down one. So differently than Nier Automata, hacking does not allow the player to destroy enemies, but allows players to access the game main and secondary lore, moving the plot forward as much as the player wants to. So, in conclusion, one see that games is still pretty much focuses on their hacker and hacking representation based upon stereotypes that are produced and reproduced by more by Hollywood than by scholars themselves. So in the case of the loner stereotype, Nier Automata seems to play a little bit with this idea. 9S is the only character capable of doing so, but he needs to have a machine near him to be able to hack it. But the computers he hacks into are usually in an area where 9S is alone. This plays a bit into the idea of needing to be a loner to be able to hack, which is related uh, um, to the stereotype to an extent. Both Castos and Eric Raymond stresses the role of a community of hackers, something that games seems to be failing to address, at least in these cases. Even though a hacker works alone with their computer, they do have a community to address the work. Actually, in the case of Assassin's Creed Black Flag, there is yet another issue. It plays with the idea that anyone can hack, and the game plays in a first-person perspective. The peer acceptance seems to be a very important issue for Raymond, which does not seem to be a reality these games want to address. The action of hacking in these games both use the same gameplay. So the main game pauses and it enters into a new stage, one that enhances the prohibitive nature and of what the player is doing. As these clashes right in what Raymond describes to be an important aspect of hackers and hacking. Not to do something illegal, but deal with code. Of course, games published by AAA companies such as Ubisoft or Square Enix, as they are these cases, would never allow the players to tamper with the game's codes and would not encourage the players to do so, as it is as it is the case of the indie titles such as Doki Doki Literature Club, for example. So the choice of arcade mini games usually play to the exhaustion by the players to be able to get access to all the information needed might be related to that. So scholarly literature on hacking and hackers is very focused on the nature of being able to play with coding and not by doing anything illegal, which Raymond characterizes as crackers. So when it comes to the political aspects of being a hacker and practicing hacking, there's still much research to be done in how games portray the issue of politics and hacking. Even though this is a theme to be further explored by scholars focused on hackers and hacking, as seen in this presentation's literature review, both these games use hacking to review the truth trope. As far as my readings went, I am not capable of analyzing this specific representation. There is a level of doing something illegal, which might be related to cracking by the tropes defined by Raymond. But also there's a characteristic of hackings as hackers as emancipation agents. There is a level of free expression in this trope, which this game seems to lean into. In the case of Assassin's Creed Black Flag, it reveals that Templars will control the world and free in speech. In the case of Nier Automata, there is a question of the player discovering why this is a never-ending war, and deliberately choosing to end it by deleting the game file and destroying everything. There is then much to explore and discuss about using and representing hackers and hackings in game. So thank you so much. Merci. Gracias. Obrigado. These are my @ and my email.